Ladies and gentlemen, let's start our ultimate panel session, which will be an interesting combination. I am wondering if our panelists will be able to connect these two topics all together. The European migration crisis in the light of US new migration policy. What can we learn from each other? And energy as a backbone of Polish-American economic collaboration. How drill, baby, drill and American nuclear energy technology will bring Polish-US ties to the next level. And it is my pleasure to welcome up the stage our dear guests, Honorable Carla Sanz, Center for Energy and Environment, America First Policy Institute, former US ambassador to Denmark. We're honored to have you here. Mr. Marcin Przydacz, member of the Polish Parliament, former deputy foreign minister, very much involved in shaping, under our conservative government, shaping Polish-American ties. Mr. Matthew Tyrmand, economist, journalist, investor, banker, who else? And my personal friend.
Mentor to Adrian Kubicki.
Please. Mr. Maciej Kożuszek, whom you have heard and met at the panel earlier, please come up the stage, journalist of Gazeta Polska. And the gentleman who works in the real estate industry, very successful, but he has more than that to say and to show. A very eloquent author, soon to be a speechwriter for some important people here and around DC and other places. Very good friend of Poland, TV Republika and Polish people. Not entirely coincidentally married to wonderful Polish lady. Mr. Terry R. Yormark II, please come up the stage. So the way we're going to do it is we will divide it to sections. One section will be moderated by Terry and the other section will be moderated by Matthew Tyrmand. Now, I don't want to put you on a spot, but I think it would be interesting to hear your answers to all of the questions. So let's fully combine it. And I would like to start, as we had in the program, from the European migration crisis. So Terry, please take the lead. I said you can.
What an honor to be. What an honor to be here, guys. Rita Crosby, I know she left. What a legend. What a legend. It's really tough to follow Dominic Torczynski, and I thought that was going to be a tough task. And then you guys put me behind the rabbi. It's amazing this microphone still works. I thought he broke it. The silent majority is not silent so much longer, especially with him around. And then we were given the double whammy of dealing with immigration and after lunch. I told you guys I like a challenge, but I know it would be this difficult. Before we begin, I want to do a little bit of a Trump weave here because there's something important that I think needs to be said about TV Republika. The last 3 days that I've been here, I've met a lot of people, and as a business person, I just want everybody back in Poland watching on TV to understand the risk that TV Republika has taken to be here. The risk is significant and it's costly. The amount of people that they brought here for this inauguration is unbelievable. And I'm really humbled to be here. And I've been around long enough to know when I see a good thing. This is a good thing, and it's going to continue to grow. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to share kind of off the cuff is to share with the people, again, back home in Poland, a little bit of behind the curtains that I've experienced here. What you guys have shared so far is a concern for censorship And that's something that deeply concerns me, and frankly, something I wasn't fully aware of. So thank you for sharing that. I want everybody to know back home, no one told me what to say while I'm up here. Not a single person. You guys are truly the truth of the people. This is a win for freedom of the press. This is a win for First Amendment. This is a win against censorship. You guys are home of free speech. It's interesting to compare, because this was supposed to be starting with U.S. and Polish immigration, what we can learn from each other on immigration. And it's funny because our countries were kind of started in two different ways. Poland has always been really deep-rooted within culture. And America was kind of founded, well, was founded really as a melting pot. And we are still a melting pot today. But the thing that's happened over time is that melting pot has begun to boil, and now it's boiling over. And that's the immigration that we see today. It's taken on a whole new series of challenges. We've taken common sense out of our policies. And the problem that's happened is when regarding immigration, we're talking about it, the common sense, when we come up with something, it's immediately met with, you're racist, you're xenophobic. We're not. We could just have a regular criticism without being racist. I'm certainly not. And let's make the distinction before we start the panel here. There's a difference between migration and immigration. There's a difference between documented and undocumented. There's a difference between legal and illegal. When my wife came into this country with her family, they had to take tests. She studied for months. She helped her parents study for months. One of my doctors, Dr. Anna Spindor, is here today. She's my allergist. I didn't even know she was arriving here today. And when I told her that I was going to be on a panel with immigration, she shared something with me that was really bothersome. Back in 1959, from Poland, her family began the immigration process. It took them 5 years to get here. The right way, the legal way, the proper way. She had 2 interviews to make sure that she was vetted properly, and then they had to find a sponsor in the United States to sign off on them and vouch for her for 10 years. Now think about today's illegal immigration system. Find a border, come across, and up until yesterday, you were good. What do you think that does to someone like her family that waited for 5 years? What do you think that does to someone like my wife's family that studied for months to pass a test? Or you could just run across the southern border, get a free cell phone, get a free place to stay. It's a little different. So that's what today we'd like to discuss, and let's see how we could change moving forward. You know, the rabbi, just one more thing. The rabbi mentioned something about RFK Jr., so I think I'd like to mention something about JFK, because I think this is important. There's been a huge societal shift that's happened in our country. Back in, I think it was 1961, JFK had an inauguration speech, and it was at that time he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you could do for your country." Just think about that. How has it changed today? Today, what can my country do for me? What could I get for free? What cell phone could I get for free? What attorney services can I get for free? What housing could I get for free? We become a society of takers instead of a society of givers. That again stopped yesterday. So with that, sorry I've taken a little bit too much time, but I'm passionate about the subject. I think that there's many, immigration is kind of like an octopus. It has a lot of different tentacles, and it impacts our societies in a lot of different ways. Economic, humanitarian, health, political, policy, housing, education, and now deportations, which, by the way, I'm from Chicago. deportation started today in Chicago. So we live in a world of limited resources. We want to be generous with other people, but we don't have all the resources to always do so. And so I open it up to the panel. I guess if we want to start here first, and kind of take it where you want, and we'll do a little bit of the Trump weave here.
Yeah, so let me be short. Does this work? Yes. So yeah, great speech at the start. After combining the two panels, people started to ask how to connect both those themes, immigration and energy. Well, if you live in Poland, there's a really easy way to do that, because right now we have a government that is using the superstructure of European Union to be both against open borders, both against Green New Deal, but on the European level to be for both those things, which is like the dream come true for a politician that doesn't want to speak the truth ever. That's a really nice thing to do. Well, I'm against open borders, but I signed a migration pact that will cause people to get deported. And the second thing, to be really, really short, that connects those two topics in my mind, is the answer to a simple question: who pays the price? Because with energy, we have global elites that are saying, well, actually, we have to leave the carbon footprint for you little guys not to leave the carbon footprint. So you have to accept the cost. With immigration, it's not the elites that are having the services shorted in healthcare or in education. These are the common people. It's the same as at the border of Poland and Belarus. Common people that were seeing migrants sitting on the bus stops that their children are taking every day to school. And the activists that came to Warsaw, well, actually they didn't came. Agnieszka Holland, that is a Polish director, that movie, she's really acclaimed, a great artist, I must say. But she had to build a wall or a concertina wall in Warsaw because the actors couldn't be bothered to go to the eastern border of Poland. That was too much of a hassle for them. But ideologically, therefore, the poor people that came to Poland looking for the place in the world. So those two things, which is, I think, one thing that must be understood in the US, the superstructure of EU lets liberals get away with them not supporting things that they are really supporting. And the second thing, the elites who want us to pay the price that they're unwilling to pay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The original panel about immigration was to discuss the corollaries, what we can learn from each other in the U.S. and in Europe, specifically Poland. And you have to diagnose what the issue is. You have the southern border with Mexico, and it's a gateway for all of Latin America, and there's massive economic migration. We're here in the U.S., we know about the problems that are resultant from that. In Poland, it's another form of hybrid warfare, using the Belarusian-Polish border to push people into Poland, which is the NATO flank and also the European Union flank. But you have to look at what the motives are, and the motives connect these two situations that might not look that congruent, but they are. It's a war against sovereignty. It's a war against the nation state. It's a war led by a global left apparatus of supranational governance bodies that hides behind progressive values and ideals as something virtuous and benevolent, but in that undermining of the nation state, of the border, of sovereignty, the goal is to break down Western civilization. Whether it's Putin bringing in Middle Eastern Iraqis or Syrians or North Africans to Belarus in his puppet state proxy, Lukashenko, to fight with Polish border guards to create images that they can exploit to say, look, these people in the West are not friendly, they're not good. That is the same technique that the left is using in the southern border. That why can't we just take people in because it's the virtuous, benevolent thing and ignore the impacts that undermine social cohesion economic prosperity, the race to the bottom and labor costs that comes from this open border civ, it comes from the same mentality. It comes from we need to break down the nation state sovereignty. We're at war with the Judeo-Christian values of the West, which has enabled a nation state to proliferate since the Treaty of Westphalia. It's a very strong dynamic that the West has surfed as a tailwind, creating the nation states, citizens in republics that have voting mechanisms, democracy, that create accountability, that enforce rule of law, and it's being undermined. And it's being undermined by the same types of people, even if one is simplistically a despot, Putin and Lukashenko. In the southern hemisphere, we're seeing the same thing. The number one driver of the migration and turning it into a crisis is Venezuela, another communist despot. Much like Putin grew up in the communist system, it makes him an innately evil man. Same thing with Chavez and Maduro. So the linkages are very, very clear. And if we can diagnose that, then we can come together and, again, like we've been trying the last 10 years and winning. Brexit, Trump's first term, we've been winning some sovereignty battles. But diagnosing the connectivity between these two totally different geographies is key to moving forward and circumventing it. Trump obviously is doing a great job, and Poland is doing a great job. They've repelled these invaders that have been used as a weapon in hybrid warfare. And they have, as my colleague here mentioned, the propaganda machine. That movie was a joke. If you looked at this movie that they did about the Belarusian and Polish border, every person coming across was a widowed mother with babies on her arm. That's not the case. These are military-aged males looking to come into the West and create havoc. Personally, they want the welfare transfer payment systems of Germany and other countries that enable it. But ultimately, this cohort, it's jihad. So both these geographies, these theaters, are seeing a warfare attempt that needs to be called out and fought against. Trump and Poland have obviously led the way.
Let's continue to go down the line.
Yeah, to your point about the international agencies, I think the UN is in a big part responsible for this international compact on migration, and the U.S. is helping to fund it along with Western Europe, but it's largely U.S. funded. And then there are other, Catholic charities and other charities that are profiting from this trafficking of humans, and then we have the drugs coming in the U.S., and now they're testing those drugs in South Africa. So these China, Mexico, international gangs. But what the migration is doing also to the least educated, both in Europe and the U.S., is pushing down the wages of the working people. The people that least can afford to make less money. They're trying to afford their lives, their Polish dream, their American dream. And it makes it really hard with all the illegal immigrants coming in. It causes homelessness in the U.S. Because why homelessness? Because multiple families with government money in their hand can pay more for an apartment than an old retired veteran. And so it's also one of the drivers. 30 years ago in Los Angeles, I saw this, the homeless, as the illegal immigration spiked. But we want to protect our cultures. We want to protect our values. And they're denigrated, they're diminished by the illegal immigration. So if there's one thing I can compliment I can compliment many things on President Trump, but one thing that I can say is he is closing our border, and he will not fund, just like he took us out of the WHO, World Health Organization, yesterday, just like he took us out of the Paris Climate Accord yesterday, because they are not good for America. We are not going to pay for bad things, just like you don't want to do in Poland. Well, I am sure that we will not pay for illegal immigration, and we will end the federal dollars that go to illegal immigration through these international organizations, including tax dollars to these church-related, and I say it in parentheses, church-related trafficking organizations, which is what they are. And I'm not denigrating churches. I love our churches. I'm talking about profiting on human trafficking, which is not good. So what can I say? I think President Trump is starting a new era, and I hope that European leaders follow him. We have a lot of globalist leaders in Western Europe, but I look at Denmark, Hungary, Poland as countries very different, but who are getting the immigration at least partially right. I felt completely safe on the streets in Poland at night. But also all three countries know that they want to preserve their culture and their way of life, and you cannot do that with unbridled, like you said, military-aged men coming into your country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Deputy Minister.
Well, thank you very much. I think I can almost fully subscribe to what Matthew just said. It is, and it was, a hybrid operation, definitely on the Polish-Belarusian border, but I dare to say that when it comes to the migration crisis or the crises in Europe, it's all one big hybrid operation. It's just the actor which conducts it is different. In case of Polish-Belarusian border, it was the state of Belarus and state of Russia. When it comes to southern border of Europe, there are groups of criminals supported by the axis of evil. I mean, all those countries which are very much doing everything to destroy what is important for us in Europe. And the means are very, very much similar. They don't use only all those instruments to cross the border. They use those elements which make us weaker inside. NGOs, media, culture, which was already said. And I really remember this operation on the Polish eastern border. I read a lot of reports before this crisis or this attack. And when I turned on the TV on the very first days of this operation, I was shocked, because it was quite obvious for me that it's well-orchestrated operation conducted by Lukashenko and Putin, and the liberal media showed it in a completely different way. It was basically our fault that we dared to defend our own borders. That is, it's not the problem and it was, conducted by Putin, and it's not a very popular person in Poland.
The American
Anyway,
media didn't show it at all.
Liberal media started to attack us, the government, that we are ready to defend our sovereignty, because that's one of the elements of the sovereignty of the country are the borders. Not only borders of Poland, but the entire EU, and basically also the border of NATO. And you know what they've done? They even used the videos of the Belarusian KGB on a Polish TV in order to attack us. So they believed Belarusian KGB. They used their video materials, movies, in order to publish them on a Polish media to show how bad the law and justice government is, how badly they treat, or we treat ordinary people. But let's answer and let's face where those peoples are from. There, as Matthew said, there were no widows with kids on their arms. They were regularly mostly young men from all over the world, because they were invited or sometimes encouraged to come to Belarus. It's not a very natural way for the migrants from Morocco to get to European Union through Moscow, Minsk, and then Warsaw, right? I think there are easier way for them. So, but they were, encouraged, sometimes paid, or sometimes they paid for such a trip. So it was fully, as I said, orchestrated and kind of artificial problem. But the topic of this panel is what can we learn from each other? Now, and I'm pretty sure you are facing the same problem in Poland. It's not only about securing the border. It's also about convincing the people that that kind of operation is very much damaging to our security, domestic security, and we need to react to that. So those hybrid operations are mostly somehow seconded by the disinformation campaign. So a lot of disinformation is spread all around the world, and I'm pretty sure that when it comes to the border with Mexico, you down here in the US, you face the same. So not only protecting the border, but also convincing on showing the truth. This is the basic. I mean, showing the truth. That's why we need also free media, free speech in the internet in order to fight the disinformation. I do believe that the best option to fight disinformation is just to inform people. They know what the truth is, but they need to get the proper image. So fighting disinformation. And second thing, which definitely Europe should learn from US since yesterday, we need a leadership. We need a leader who is brave enough and determined to show this is the threat, and we need to react to that despite any cost. And let's not and for you also the lesson, let's not let the liberal officials to overuse our, I don't know, naivety or that kind of good feelings towards people. In Poland, after the change of the government, a lot of bad things happened, but one of those was that the current government created a special group of prosecutors which was with a name to analyze what happened on the Polish-Belarusian border. But it could be a kind of shocking for you that those prosecutors were not supposed to analyze what those criminals or what Belarusian or Russians has done. No, they were chasing on Polish soldiers and border guards, whether they have not breached the law or did anything wrong. And it shows the mentality also of those guys. So when you today fight the problem of migration on your border, be aware that one day those guys may be back and they will try to somehow chase those people who are probably today doing their best job. So many lessons taken in our case, and I'm pretty sure we will also learn from your experience on the southern border.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Matthew, you wanted to jump in here real quick?
Like Minister Przydacz just said, we have to inform people. This is something when Michał Rachoń had his show, which was so important when they launched TVP World, English language, a view from Central and Eastern and Western Europe from the pro-sovereigntist right that was skeptical of EU overreach into these competences like border security. We tried to inform people, and the new government came in and memory hold 3 years of daily broadcasts and archives with top opinion leaders because that threatens them. So what we're seeing with TV Republika growing and having new influence is so important. I also want to add that I'm old enough, like everyone else in this room, to remember the election that changed Poland and really helped accelerate a Eurocentric shift to the right. It was in Hungary and in Poland, and the issues in 2014 and 15 were quite simple. Borders and security from third world migration. As Germany has been doing this for a generation with Turkey, and the French have grown accustomed to it from their history with Algeria, Poland and Hungary, coming out of post-communism where they had far-off mandarins in Moscow telling them how to live, saw Brussels encroaching on this basic elemental part of running your own republic, and they rejected it. And we had 2 very successful terms with this government. And then the government that was open borders, pro-Eurocentric migration policy, the PO government led by Tusk then led by him in Brussels as a de facto EU head, and then back to campaign, ran on, okay, now we get it, we're common sense, we will not open the borders. And then the first day of his new premiership as a self-appointed prime minister when he campaigned, saying he was not going to appoint himself as prime minister, and then, of course, he did. The first thing he did was sign the EU Migration Pact under pressure, willing pressure from Ursula von der Leyen to bring in third world migrants from Africa. Small number to start, 2,000, but once that bow breaks, it grows. And then, of course, the monies were shifted from the COVID relief funds that were held for so many years. So it is a bribing mechanism as well that those who want to break down nation-state sovereignty send money to those who are compliant to these policies and philosophies that break down and neuter the Western-style nation-state. And we need to be vigilant. We obviously had a new inflection here in the U.S., and already President Trump is closing the border. He's going into Chicago. He's going to do what he said. In the first term, he ran on it, just like this Polish election and Hungarian election to secure the borders and migration policy. Trump ran on it in 15-16. I was there writing for Breitbart when the agenda was all about, it was Jeff Sessions, it was Stephen Miller, it was about this single issue, we're going to build a wall, and he won a mandate because Americans saw the damage that open borders does to security, domestically, to economics and wages, and they said, okay, we're voting for him. And then he got hamstrung by the deep state, the blob, those who could slow walk everything he did. We saw he now is well-educated with well-educated people around him on how to uproot this. And I only hope that Poland and Central Europe, as well as other European countries, EU countries that have right-wing movements. I was part of the Swedish Democrats' very successful election process, and they also ran on this, not taking in unlimited migration from the third world as they've had a rape epidemic resultant from it. And they won, they became the kingmakers. The famous socialist, almost communist Sweden moved to the right, and the Swedish Dems, the far-right Swedish Dems, were the kingmaker that created a right-wing government for the first time in decades in Sweden. So it's possible, but it requires mobilization, education, informing, as Marcin has said, and we can fight on this issue and we could win on this issue because it's a common-sense issue and the people get it.
I know we have limited time, and Mr. Deputy Minister, I appreciate you focusing on Belarus, because us Americans, we really haven't heard much about it at all here. The media has almost completely ignored it. The other thing that the media has ignored, and it's important that we share here today, the other side of the border, Ukraine. You know, we talk about the media that, at least in Poland, that's used that as a weapon. They're forgetting about the generosity of Polish people, which I think is really important that is recognized. We are a generous country here in America, but Poland opened up its borders for refugees from Ukraine like never before. It was a historic effort. My family learned about it a little bit late, but we donated only because I have a friend from high school that risked his own life and was driving goods into Ukraine from Poland. Polish churches, all the cities on the border took people in, not just one family, multiple families. And that went underreported. And what a sin. Because Poland, thank you for taking in those Ukrainian refugees. If you guys could comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
If I may, of course, I mean, there are many other borders. So if I may, I'll also later refer to the Polish-German border, because we do have also some challenges with regard to the migration from that angle, from that end. But coming back to the Polish-Ukrainian border, that would be, I would say, that was a kind of Polish tradition when some friendly nations were in need. That was the history of Poland. We always helped them. We just had a rabbi here. The history of Jewish community in Poland started the same way. The Jewish community were persecuted in the Western Europe, mostly in France, in Spain, in the Middle Ages, and they had to find a shelter. And they found it in Poland. The Polish king at that time said that you're very much welcome to my country if you want to start your new life in Kraków or in Poznań, wherever. Start your business. You are very much welcome, despite the fact that we are Christian Catholics. You are Jewish, but we are, in those good terms, liberals. I mean, we are open and tolerant, and this tolerance was a mark of Poland and Polish society for decades or for centennials throughout the age. And the same tradition, the same I would say DNA of tolerance I would say showed also during the Russian aggression against Ukraine. We appreciate that many countries helped us. Not all of them, not all of allied countries helped us in this process, and you know, the more days passed since that, the more problematic also it stays for us, because you know, once this problem is not in the media or is not covered in media, we stay with the challenge by ourselves. So it would be very nice to still remember that millions of Ukrainians are in Europe, but the vast majority of them are in Poland without any possibility to go back, and that creates also a bit of tensions. But that was a good part of history. The bad part of the history is the Polish-German border, because recently we also face a lot of challenges there. Migrants were rejected, I mean, from Germany, and they were sent, as Germany says, sent back to Poland, claiming that there were Polish migrants or refugees. So thousands of migrants are being sent now from the western angle to Poland without a proper answer of our government, and that creates a lot of tensions. Again, there is no migration pact still in force, but it already started. I mean, the tension between countries within Europe, and we need to be also aware of that.
So Adrian challenged me to combine these two panels, and there's no smooth transition, but I'll try my best. Drill, baby, drill, and immigration, two policies that are backwards, and now we fixed them. So to the drill, baby, drill panel, if you could comment on maybe the policies in the past and what we're looking at moving forward.
Yeah, just shortly. I had yesterday this stark contrast listening to, I think we should say in plural, inauguration speeches of Donald Trump and the optimism of his vision for America. And this optimism, I think, rests deeply on this proposition that we have liquid gold, as he says. And at the same time, I'm looking at my phone in Polish X, Twitter, and I see a TV show that is in, well, what we used to call public media, but now was illegally taken control of. And this is a program with young people. And they are talking, and I hear one guy saying just a snippet of a statement. He says, well, me with my partner, and he was speaking about his male partner, but that's fine. We would like to have kids, but we have no optimism about what will happen in the future because it's completely impossible in Poland to have kids. And then I reminded myself of the situation. We had this thing that called climate strike, young people sitting on the streets and saying, we won't let the cars pass because we are the last generation and the apocalypse is upon us. And the thing, of course, we have experts here, so I won't talk long, but I think the basic difference is the whole environmental agenda is so catastrophic. And when Donald Trump says, guys, we have liquid gold under our feet, our future can be bright, American decline is over. This is, and I'm a conservative. Conservatives weren't always super enthusiastic about the idea of progress. But if you listen to people who are just obsessed with the fact that we can kill the planet, kill each other, hurt each other's feelings with our words, when you hear, well, actually in our lives there might be some good happening. I think that's just philosophically one of the major things that is so inspiring in what happened yesterday with this inauguration.
Thank you.
Energy is security, just like borders are security. I think there is a natural tie that binds these issues. They both need to be secured for a society, for a nation to see prosperity, to see the safety and sanctity, to raise children, to grow, to be free. And Morawiecki's greatest legacy as prime minister in his successful term was Świnoujście, was building and opening and executing a Baltic LNG terminal right over the border with Germany. For the first time, Central Europe did not have to rely on Norway or other European nations that have a different political agenda, or Russia, obviously, which is the great supplier to Europe the last 25, 30 years. And obviously the Middle East as well, which you're always at the threat of OPEC's cartel pricing you out for geopolitical reasons. So Świnoujście coming online, and then immediately, and this was in the second half of the first Trump term, signing deals with Texas and Oklahoma LNG producers like Sandridge and multi-year deals. This created the possibility and the probability, and it still holds, that Poland will be the input zone for all raw energy for all of Central Europe and the 3 Cs. We brought together, thanks to Duda's leadership, the 3 Cs, the Intermarium, bringing together the dozen nations from the Baltic to the Black, which were mostly under the yoke of communism, but even Austria joined because they see in Central Europe there's growth. For the first time in hundreds of years, they're looking toward their east, not their west, to work economically. To have this opportunity to bring energy right over the German border in Poland and shift it all the way through Central Europe, all the way down to the Balkans. There's been talk for years about more Bulgaria building these kind of depots, but they've been slow to come online. This is multi-generational impact for security, for economic prosperity, for a tie politically with, for instance, the U.S. I expect these contracts will be enlarged under Trump term 2. Obviously, we'll talk about nuclear as well being a component. But this is a big deal. I was actually at Rick Grinnell's ambassador's residence in Berlin. And it was a dinner he held for Gordon Sondland, who is the ambassador to the EU, who I'm sure you know quite well. And Rick brought me a little bit to troll the German establishment business elite. And I said to these guys from General Atlantic, guys from Axel Springer, guys from Unilever, like the biggest concerns in Europe and their German heads, I said that with this coming online, you will soon be buying your gas from Poland with a nice markup for the Polish economy, and the shoe will be on the other foot. And they were really annoyed, and Rick shot me a very sort of thumbs up, like, look, keep going, this is fun.
Ms. Ambassador, please.
And to your point about nuclear, under President Trump's first term, there was a 30-year nuclear deal signed with Poland and the U.S., so we want to have nuclear cooperation with Poland. And that
Georgette led on that, Georgette Mossback.
yes, she's a
that was the best thing she
terrific
did.
lady. She was your former ambassador from the U.S. to Poland, Georgette Mossbacher. But I'm proud that yesterday, President Trump, he signed an executive order declaring energy a national emergency. It gives him tremendous power. I'm also pleased that America First Policy Institute, where I'm the vice chair for energy and environment, had a hand in that, creating this. And what it does is it gives President Trump not just emergency powers, but he's invoking also defense powers. He's invoking the Department of Defense, Department of Interior, Department of Energy, so that where on our West Coast and in the northeastern states where they're blocking energy production and movement, he can overcome the resistance of governors like Gavin Newsom. And I'm also proud that Poland keeps your energy costs down, that you have a good mix of energy. We want to do more with you. We want to sell you our LNG, of course. And I hope that Poland will continue to take good care of your nature while you don't let Brussels or others dictate to you your energy mix, your energy policy. You need to make sure that you do what is best for Poland, not for Brussels. And if you're interested about using fossil fuels, or you have young people that are resistant to that, the benefits of fossil fuels are extraordinary. And they're also in almost every material in this room, including most of our clothing, in our medication, our cosmetics, our home decor, but our home building materials as well. But if you have young people in your life that are afraid of fossil fuels because they've been brainwashed by their school or media, there's a great book written by a guy named Alex Epstein called Fossil Future. So I recommend that you get that for them and have them listen to it on Audible or read it on paper, and let them learn that there's a trade-off. But the amazing thing is that our nature is much less dangerous to people, like weather, much less dangerous to people when we have fossil fuels in the mix, and it's necessary. I also wanted to talk with pride about what President Trump did yesterday. He ended our EV mandates for the United States. He ended the Green New Deal net zero focus of this administration. The current, or the just passed administration, the Biden-Harris administration, had Green New Deal spending that was costing us trillions of dollars, but also it was in every part of our nation's agencies and departments that they were trying to impose a kind of net zero in the United States. And we know that that is another issue that these international organizations are pushing, like the UN, like the World Economic Forum. We will resist that, and we will win, because there are more of us than there are of them attempting to dictate a net zero. Sadly, Western Europe is really, they've drunk the Kool-Aid, but I think that there is an awakening happening when you look at the cost of kilowatts per hour. For instance, in Germany, in places like Denmark, they have to change their policy. And you will be leading the way along with the United States. And I hope that we can sell them some of our energy. We have coal. We are never going to run out of our liquid gold, as President Trump calls it. And also, we want to do more in nuclear, but we have to get our policies right. That's something that President Trump is working to get right. And I know that Poland as well needs nuclear, because it's green, it's renewable, I mean, it lasts for decades and decades, and reliable. And we can look at France, how France uses nuclear. 70% of their power comes from nuclear, and it's safe. It's not like, I grew up near a place called 3 Mile Island that melted down in the 70s, and my family had to flee their family home out of fear that they would be hurt, kind of like over in Chernobyl. And happily, they were not hurt. And now I think it's Microsoft is going to reopen it as a nuclear center, powering one of their data centers. So Don't be afraid of nuclear. We'll get our policies right, and we look forward to partnering with you. Thank you.
I think that's a good spot to end with the limited time that we have, and I want to thank our four panelists very much.
Can I just actually ask Ambassador Sands a question? I think a lot of people have on their mind, as she was ambassador to Denmark, Greenland. What's going to happen?
You had to ask the Greenland question.
I was supposed to moderate, and it was like the main question I wanted to ask you. So
that's why he's the
and
journalist.
it's very germane. It's an energy and security issue. So
you all know Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It's a wonderful place, but it's just off our northeast coast. It's part of North America. I wrote an op-ed in the Washington Times last week about Greenland, if you want to read more of my thoughts. But just briefly, I will say, President Trump knows that it is under threat by China and Russia, especially China. But Russia's all over the area of the GIUK gap, and that's what we call the gigantic seas around Greenland, Iceland, all the way to the UK, because Faroe Islands are part of Denmark, and they're just north of Scotland. So what I can say is President Trump's not going to leave it unsecured, and he will get a deal done. I'm confident of this, and I know that he will work with the Danish government and the Greenlandic government. Thank you for the question.
it's probably good for the Danish economy as well to see it cultivated on the raw energy, which they have not.
So Denmark sends them about $600 million every year, a little more than that, for 57,000 people. And can they afford that? Well, I think they get a lot back, all the shipping that has to go through Denmark and all the flights and everything, so there is payback. But I think that President Trump, it's certainly unfinished business from the first administration when I was there in Denmark. So, yeah.
We need you back in Denmark.
Well, no. We'll have Ken Howery in Denmark. He'll be the next great ambassador to the kingdom. Thanks.
Great.
Matt, thank you for reminding everyone in the audience why I'm in real estate and you're the journalist. So now you can go get your interview over there. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you.